A while back, I had this really unsettling experience. I was walking home one night, like I've done countless times before. The neighborhood wasn't the best after dark, but I never thought much of it. This night, though, things felt different. As I was walking, the sound of my footsteps seemed way too loud in the silence. The wind rustling the leaves gave me the creeps, and I held onto my phone, trying to reassure myself. I called up a friend, just to have some company on the line, you know? I told them, hey, I'm on my way home. I'm feeling a bit weird tonight. They were cool about it and told me to stay on the line until I got home. Gave me a sense of security, I guess. But when I turned onto the next dimly lit street, that was in between where I was now and my street, my heart started pounding. I thought I heard faint footsteps behind me, like someone was keeping pace. I glanced back, but there was nothing. Just shadows. I said loudly to my friend on the phone, hoping it would scare away anyone near me. I think someone might be following me. Then I said quietly, I'm not sure, but it's freaking me out. They tried to calm me down and told me I was almost home. I walked faster, and those footsteps, if they were real, seemed to speed up too. Panic was rising in me as I realized that whoever it was, they were getting closer. I finally got to my street and my home was in sight. I felt relieved. But that relief didn't last long. Just as I was reaching for my keys on the porch, a hand shot out from the darkness and grabbed my shoulder. I screamed, twisted away, and saw the guy's dimly lit face, shadowed by his hoodie. Instinct kicked in and I swung my bag at him, hitting him right across the face. He staggered back, swearing, and I seized the opportunity. I unlocked the door, slammed it shut behind me, and locked it like my life depended on it. I sat on the floor, heart racing and in shock. Finally, I came to my senses and realized I was still on the line with my friend. They were yelling through the phone, asking what happened. Through tears, I told them, I'm home. He was right behind me, but I made it. I'm safe. My friend yelled at me to make sure the rest of the doors and windows were locked, and to call 911. They may still be able to catch him if he's close. The police came and took my statement. The guy's face, those cold, dead eyes, and that twisted smile. They were all I could think about. I knew I'd narrowly dodged something awful that night. The memory of those shadows and that fear, they're not going away anytime soon. To the guy who almost got me, let's not meet. This memory still gives me chills. It happened a while ago. I was at the mall, just doing some shopping and having a regular day off from work. It's the kind of place where you expect the hustle and bustle of busy shoppers, not fear and danger. As I strolled through the shops, I started to feel this weird vibe, like someone was watching me. I brushed it off at first, thinking I was just being paranoid. But that feeling, it grew stronger with each step I took. I decided to head to a crowded area of the mall, thinking maybe it was just my imagination. No matter where I went, I began to glance back, taking in my surroundings. I noticed this strange, tall, lanky-looking man trailing me. He was in every single store I went into. This was too blatant to be coincidental. I just felt like I was being followed, like this guy was tracking my every move. I cut in front of a large crowd of people walking by and ran into the nearest store. I ducked behind a tall stack of clothing and managed to hide my phone, standing it between two stacks of shirts facing the store entrance. I recorded a video of the guy as I watched him step into the same store, hoping that if things got worse, I'd have something to show the police. My heart was racing. I saw him walk deeper into the store, looking around. He seemed slightly panicky, like he was looking for me. I quickly ran, still crouched, and made my way towards the front of the store. I knew the exit to my car was nearby. As I slammed through the outside doors and started making my way to cross the street, another guy stepped out from behind the corner of the building, blocking my path. He just stared at me from under a lowered baseball cap. I turned and bolted back into the mall, not caring where I was going, just needing to get away. Panic was taking over, and I felt like my legs were going to give out any second. I spotted a group of security personnel and ran toward them. They looked at me, completely startled. I told them what was happening and showed them the video I took. I told them about the second man outside around the corner. They took it seriously, thank God, and went to find the guy. I stayed with one of the other security guys, my heart still pounding as we waited for the others to come back. They managed to track him down, the guy outside of the mall, but the one that was inside they could not find. The one outside had started running down the parking lot as he saw security come out of the doors. The guards handed him over to the local police shortly after they arrived. I was shaking. They told me I was lucky, that the one they caught had a record of stalking and assaulting women. The other one, they never found to my knowledge. Looking back, I still cringe thinking about how close things got. That feeling of being watched and followed. It's not something I can easily shake off. I'm thankful for the security team who helped me stay safe and believed me through that terrifying experience. To the men who stalked me in a mall, let's never meet again. So, I never see someone post their experience being a stalker. Unfortunately, I have found myself in this position a time or two in my life. Don't worry, I understand that I have these urges and am currently in therapy. Grace was a girl who worked at the local diner. She was my favorite waitress, and I was her favorite customer. She was a 23-year-old college student from the university in town, and I adored my visits with her on Saturday mornings. She would cater to me when she saw me walk in, and would save my usual seat in the corner booth in the back. I liked sitting back there, so I could people watch. She would sit with me in my booth and chit-chat with me on her breaks, and in between checking on tables. Our interactions began about 5 months ago when she first got the position. I still remember the first time she waited on me. She accidentally dropped a glass of water while walking by my booth, and it splashed all over my legs. I grew upset at first, until I looked into her emerald green eyes as she profusely apologized for the mess she had made. I felt my heart flutter. I began to console her, letting her know it was no big deal and I wouldn't melt. She chuckled, and that's when our friendship, if you can call it a friendship, began. Ever since then, she would take it upon herself to be sure she was my waiter when I would come in on my usual Saturday brunches. We began talking, our usual house college conversations. She lit up, talking about the exam she recently aced and how she is excited to be free for the summer soon. She mentioned she had asked off the next Saturday, and she wouldn't be here for my usual brunch day. I felt the upset feelings bubble up inside me. I made a sad face at her and asked why she would abandon me like that. She giggled and said that her boyfriend is taking her to spend the day at the local fair. She explained she was excited because she hadn't been to a fair since she was a kid. I wished her to have fun, but not too much. I instantly started feeling something that I hadn't felt in a long while. The strange feeling of abandonment, despite her having no part in actually taking care of me in real life. You must all think I'm delusional, but I am very aware of my urges. At this time, I just didn't understand why I had them. At that moment, I decided I was also going to be attending the fair. The Saturday of the fair rolls around and I get up early and prepare my car with supplies I would need to, do what I needed to do. I threw on a cowboy hat so my face could be hidden from most angles if need be. I drove to the local fair, not really thinking twice. I look back now and kick myself for the choices I made in my past. When I arrive at the fair, it is 15 minutes before she had mentioned her and her boyfriend would be there. It was around 7:30 p.m. at this point, and I was becoming worried. They were late. Anger began to rise within me, thinking that they may have changed their plans. That's when I saw them walking up to the ticket booth. It was time. I followed them throughout the fair, keeping a good distance back. I hid in plain sight, covering my face with the brim of my hat as they moved around. I was waiting for the chance to whisk her away. I was waiting for him to leave her alone for just a few moments. That's all the time I would need. But he never did. Damn him for being a good boyfriend. This is when my senses began coming back to me. What in the hell was I doing? I began to panic internally. I glanced up at her walking in my direction with her boyfriend, and we locked eyes for a moment. I panicked and headed towards the exit of the fair. I have since realized my behavior is not normal at all and go to therapy regularly. My therapist says that I am greatly improving and that he is impressed with my healing process. Since that night, I don't see her at the diner anymore. I am sad because she really was my favorite. Little did she know, I kind of staged her trip that caused her to spill the water, just like I did with the one she had replaced. I can't wait to meet her replacement. It's been a year since that night, but the memories are still etched in my mind as if it happened yesterday. I've always been skeptical about the supernatural, brushing off ghost stories and urban legends as nothing more than fiction. But what I experienced in that old, abandoned house shattered my skepticism and left me with a lingering dread that I couldn't shake. It was a chilly autumn evening when a group of friends and I decided to explore the rumored haunted house at the edge of our small town. We had all heard the tales of a tragic family that once lived there, of strange occurrences and eerie sightings. Being young and brimming with curiosity, we armed ourselves with flashlights and ventured into the decrepit building, each of us laughing off the unease that settled in the pit of our stomachs. As we stepped inside, the air seemed to thicken with a sense of foreboding. The walls were coated in layers of peeling wallpaper, and the floorboards creaked beneath our every step. We made our way through dusty hallways, our laughter echoing and bouncing off the walls. But that laughter began to fade as we entered what appeared to be a long-forgotten living room. A chill ran down my spine as I noticed a faded family portrait hanging crookedly on the wall. The family, with smiles frozen on their faces, looked hauntingly distant in those faded colors. It was as if time had stood still in this room, encapsulating their joy and trapping their sorrow. As we continued our exploration, a feeling of being watched settled over me, like unseen eyes were following our every move. My flashlight flickered sporadically, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. I attributed it to weak batteries, but the unease in the air was undeniable. We ventured further, into what appeared to be the children's bedroom. Broken toys were strewn across the floor, remnants of happier times. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind brushed past me, and I felt a faint touch against my arm. My heart raced, and I turned to my friends, expecting one of them to play a prank, but they were as pale as I was, their eyes wide with shock. That's when we heard it. The faint, distant sound of whispering. At first, it was indistinct, like the wind rustling through leaves, but then the whispers grew clearer, forming into words I could almost comprehend, like a faint radio signal struggling to find clarity. I turned off my flashlight, hoping to silence the noise, thinking it was some sort of audio trickery. But the whispers persisted, growing louder and more urgent. Panic seized me, and my friends and I huddled close, trembling in the dark, surrounded by those insistent, haunting voices. One by one, we bolted for the exit, stumbling through the corridors in a blind frenzy. The whispers seemed to chase us, growing louder and more piercing as we fled the house. As we burst out into the night air, the whispers abruptly stopped, leaving us gasping for breath and staring at the abandoned house in terror. We never spoke of that night again, and the dynamic among us changed. The once skeptical group of friends had been irrevocably changed by the inexplicable terror we had encountered. The experience had shattered our sense of reality, leaving us to question what lies beyond the veil of the known. I still hear those whispers in the dark corners of my mind, and even now, as I sit in the safety of my well-lit room, I can't shake the feeling that something unseen lingers just beyond my perception. That night taught me that there are things in this world, beyond our understanding, that can't be easily dismissed as mere imagination or superstition. Do you ever get that feeling when you're driving down a deserted road late at night? You know, the sensation that you're being watched, that something otherworldly might be lurking just beyond the darkness. Well, let me tell you about a night when that feeling turned into a bone-chilling encounter that I'll never forget. I was on a road trip, driving through a remote area in the mountains. The moon was barely visible through the thick canopy of trees, and the only source of light was my car's headlights cutting through the darkness. My GPS had lost signal, leaving me to rely on old-fashioned paper maps to navigate. As I rounded a bend in the road, my headlights caught something unusual. A figure standing on the shoulder, its form obscured by the shadows. My foot instinctively eased off the gas, and I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was a woman, wearing a tattered dress that seemed out of place in the middle of nowhere. I hesitated for a moment, my rational mind telling me to keep driving, but something tugged at me, a mixture of curiosity and concern. I pulled over, my heart pounding as I watched the woman from the safety of my car. She was facing away from me, her posture tense as if she were waiting for something. I rolled down my window a crack and called out to her, asking if she needed help. But there was no response, just an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on forever. The woman's head twitched slightly, as if she had heard me, but chose not to acknowledge my presence. A shiver ran down my spine as I reached for my phone to call for assistance. But just as I was about to dial, the woman turned slowly, revealing her face, or what was left of it. Her features were distorted as if they had been stretched and twisted beyond recognition. One eye was a vacant void, while the other bore a malevolent gleam that locked onto mine. I froze, my phone slipping from my trembling fingers as a wave of terror washed over me. Without warning, the woman began to glide towards my car, her movements unnatural and eerie. Panic surged through my veins, and I slammed my foot on the gas, my tires screeching as I sped away from that nightmarish apparition. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw her still standing by the side of the road, her head tilted at an impossible angle as she watched me disappear into the distance. The feeling of being watched intensified, and I couldn't shake the sensation that her malevolent gaze was still fixed on me, even as I drove further away. I didn't stop until I reached a well-lit gas station in the next town, my hands still trembling on the steering wheel. I told the attendant about what I had seen, hoping for some logical explanation, but the look in his eyes told me that he had heard similar stories before. From that night on, I can't drive on deserted roads without feeling a shiver down my spine, without seeing that twisted face in the darkness. I don't know what that spirit was, or why it tried to stop me, but I've learned to trust my instincts and never stop on the side of the road, no matter how strong the compulsion or how convincing the apparition may seem. Some things are better left undisturbed in the realm of the unknown.